Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, February the 12th, and it's an okay day. The temperature is really nice for February. Yesterday was a lovely, bright, sunshiny day, which we all know I like a really sunshiny winter day. And it was bright enough where I was like going, ooh, maybe it will be this sunshiny on Sunday and we can film in the sunroom. And I went and I looked at the weather app and it said no. And I went, well, just because the weather app says that doesn't mean that that's necessarily going to be true. And at noon, it was not too bad, not as bright as Saturday, but not too bad. And about an hour later, it had clouded over and like that was gone. So we're still in this location filming. Don't worry. Warmer weather is coming. We will be back in the sunroom. My really happy stitchy place. Anyway, if you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. And as always, many, many thanks to those of you who come back and check in with me regularly. Just wanted to do a couple of things about the comments from last week. I thought it was really funny because quite frankly, as expected, some of you were like, ooh, I'm absolutely a morning person. Don't worry, Jay, there are other people in the world who also get up at 5:30 in the morning, which even I'm just going like, oh, that's just, it's not a good time for me anyway. And not surprisingly, there were also those people who were like, I'm absolutely a night owl. I laughed at the people who said, unfortunately, I have to get up early, but I'm really a night owl, so I stay up late. So sometimes that doesn't work out so well, which I'm like, yes. If you got it coming on both ends, that's probably, it catches up with you quicker than you expect. Lala had a really great comment where she was, it's like, see, it's been a week since I recorded the last one and I've forgotten some of the things that I said. So Lala made a comment where she was talking about she was a monogamous stitcher. It's probably because I said I was a recovering monogamous stitcher. She was a monogamous stitcher, and then she found Flosstube, and then she did a rotation, and then discovered she didn't like it at all and has gone back to being monogamous, which absolutely find the thing that works for you and do that. That's the best way to do it. Yeah. I used to be monogamous. I'm not monogamous anymore. And then a couple of people also made some comments about, they appreciated the fact that I mentioned crossed wing. Crossed wing collection. They do both fabric and they have their own cross stitch designs. They tend to be nature related. So whether it's flowers or like if you're looking for really interesting bird designs, they've got a really lovely collection of those. So those are, yeah, so I enjoyed that. Again, it's not a fabric company that gets talked about a lot, and their designs aren't necessarily stitched a lot either. But they still are out there and still dyeing fabric and all the good stuff. So yeah, crossed wing. Okay. All right. I was just about to say, don't let me forget. But as usual, even if you're screaming at me when you're watching it, it doesn't work. Same way when I talk to people when I watch Flosstube, it doesn't work out so well. The last one, there was a comment on a video from a while ago from a viewer who was commenting that they were having issues when they were working on Q-snaps with staining around where the clamps were. And did I have any suggestions like for preventing that? So a couple of things. One, I'm gonna just say I have never had that issue, and I think there's several reasons. One, I'm really paranoid about my stitching, so I always wash my hands before I sit down to stitch. If I decide I need to snack on something, I snack on the thing, and then I go up and I wash my hands again, which leads to the dry hands issue and, you know, me needing to wear gloves at night to recover from that. So washing my hands a lot when I'm doing needlework. I don't eat while I do needlework. I also don't have pets in the house. I also don't have small children. Those things can contribute to unexpected things happening with needlework for a variety of reasons, which we're not even going to get into the stories. But I don't have those situations. So I guess one of my suggestions to you would be like, you know, is there any way to tell what you think is causing the staining? Two, I do occasionally use grime guards, not because I'm trying to keep out the grime. It's usually because I'm trying to, you know, control fabric on something that I'm putting in a Q-snap. But they do wrap around it, and that may help. That may help because these will. I just pulled one out. I didn't even check to see if it was the right size. Hang on. Hang on. Props. I forgot to bring all the props. I just pulled one out of the drawer. Right. So, you know, if you've got a grime guard, it covers up where the clamp is. You know, in this case, this is an 8x8 quite comfortably. So that may help. Second of all, if it really is persistent, the simple answer may be at the end of every stitching. Now, as I say, already I'm checking myself in my head going, take your project out of your Q-snap every time you stitch on it. I don't find getting a project on and off a Q-snap hard, so it would be easy to do that, and that would absolutely help you keep things from getting into the ridge where the clamp is. Yeah, I was checking myself because the answer is like, I don't necessarily take mine out of the Q-snap. Like if I'm working on a project that's in a Q-snap and I know I'm working on it for several days, I don't necessarily take it off of the Q-snap every time. I do loosen it so that it is not taut, but I don't necessarily take it out of the Q-snap every time. If I know it's not going to get worked on for several days, it absolutely is coming out of the Q-snap period. So, yeah, I guess if it's ends up being a persistent stain, to me that sort of says like it's probably a longer term project that you're working on the Q-snap. So I guess maybe my strongest answer is take it out of the Q-snap every time. Like I say, it's not an issue that I've necessarily had. So if anybody else has tips and tricks, throw them down into the comment section down below. Yeah. So there's that. All right, with that, let's get into some stitching. I feel like a very productive week. I'm very happy with my stitching this week. So we will start off with, props. My Sunday stitch, which is Spring ABCs by Little House Needleworks. I'm having a good chuckle. You know, I've been watching Flosstube, as don't we all, and I've been laughing because people are so anxious to sort of get you to what the picture looks like the best. I usually have a hard time because I'm going like, where it's like, okay, I know what the title is, and sorry, who's the designer? And they don't necessarily repeat that part. Anyway, so I'm trying to be very good myself about holding it back so you can actually get all of the information in case you're looking for the design. It's also in the show notes below. But for those people who are watching on their televisions, you know, the show notes don't necessarily help instantaneously. For many, a television Flosstube watcher, they have a tablet beside them, which means they can go online and order things. Anyway, so where did I get to? So I had a funny week as I was working on this. So I finished off Gardens. I had them up going, yeah, no, that's what I did. I finished off Gardens, and then my plan was that I was going to work on this green stem as it came down here and get all of the green done. Now, a funny thing happened on the way. So I ended up saying I needed some reference points as I was coming along here to make sure that everything was lining up correctly, which meant that I needed to do a couple more letters. But then as soon as you do a couple more letters, I kind of wanted to finish off the length of that, which meant I ended up doing 4 letters. So I could just say I took a length of thread off of my Threadworx and stitched that. So I got a little further down than I was expecting. This section is not done because there are flowers that are yet to go in, but it's close to being done. I am ahead of schedule on this one. I should have cleaned up the table beside me before I started filming this. It's only because I'm trying to get to my magic book, because I actually need to look. I know I'm ahead of schedule, but I just don't remember how much. So today, the 12th, I should be working on the letter G, which means I am done that one. So I'm still absolutely on track. I am working on this with the goal being that I get 1 letter done per week. So yes, I feel like I'm doing really well. Technically, by the end of tonight's stitching, I should be done H, which, yeah, I think I'll be done down to at least I, if not working on J a little bit. So it's coming along very well. So I'm pleased with how this project is coming. The funny thing is last week when I was showing it and I was showing flowers, as I showed it on camera, I looked at it and I went, oh, I don't know that I'm okay with that blue. I went, you might need to change that. And it was okay. I was a little bit ahead of schedule, so if I needed to rip it out and change the blue, it was going to be fine. And of course, I worked on it that night and went, let's just wait. I looked at it in the daylight the following day and I went, no, you're fine. So I'm sticking with the color that I'm using, which I think is Needleart's Blueberry. So this is coming along very, very nicely. I am stitching this on a 28 count Star Sapphire Jobelan because I think it looks springy. So yes, that's coming along. All right, so then we got to Monday, and I'm doing odd things is because I've misplaced my bag of clips. I only have 4 clips out. And the funny thing is, there were too many clips out before, which is why I made sure I got the bag out and put them all back in. And now I can't find the bag. I don't know where I've put it. It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, so I have to juggle a few things. So then on Monday was February the 6th, which means it's the designated day for me working on one of my Queen Elizabeth memorial pieces. And so I was hauling out my Jubilee Pincushion ornament by Helen Phillips. This is off of Etsy. My goal on this one for Monday was to finish it, and I did, and I'm very, very pleased with how it looks. And by the way, Cheryl, since I think I'm going to see you at the library on Saturday, can you bring yours? Because I want to look at your finish again, if you don't mind. Thank you. Here is mine. I am stitching this on a I was going to say 32. It's not 32. This is a 28 count white opalescent white Lugana. And you can see the shiny in the screen. So it is a finish for 2023. It's going into the finish column, which is great. The things that I changed on here is I did make this gold around here. This is a Petite treasure braid, which carried up into the crown, and all of the colors inside of the crown are Krynex. Because if anybody can take a small project and make it harder than it needs to be, you know that's me. So yes, I Krynecked up the crown. I didn't Kryneck up the ER. It's totally fine. I think that's DMC 797. But I Krynecked up the crown and the gold around it, and the single red stitches in the corner is also, I was going to say it's also Kryneck. It is not Kryneck. I think that's just DMC. Anyway, so there we go. There's that finish. Dun, dun, dun. So that was a good stitchy day. So then my next project, I was back to my From the Heart Needleart by Wendy February Quaker. I have discovered that there is a sale running for this, so I have accidentally joined a sale. Oh my goodness, this is like 2 years in a row. I think it's Alba, A-L-B-A Stitcher, is doing these. She's got a hashtag for it, so I really do need to up my Instagram game and actually start posting these to Instagram. So yes, February Quaker. And I had a really good week. Not ironed, of course, because I don't do that. There's my February Quaker. It is complete, and I'm very pleased with it. So the interesting thing about, I'm using the called for pinks, which are Seashelly and Strawberry Parfait. If you were here last week, you know that every time I come up with the other one, I have to correct myself because in my head I call it Raspberry Beret, and it's not. Strawberry Parfait and Seashelly. The called for color for the green was Joshua Tree, and we're going to talk about this. I did not end up using Joshua Tree. I end up using Classic Colorworks Secret Garden. Now, the funny thing, as always, colors look incredibly different on camera than they do in real life. I feel like going, secretly I'm a blonde. It's the camera. No, just kidding. Anyway, not that dramatic. It's looking more green on camera than it does in real life. So this Secret Garden is quite a fairly toned down green. So it's looking more green on camera than it does in real life. And I kept my bag out so that I could show these, because I wanted to talk about how different things look. Props. Here come the props. Okay. I know, more prop work than you would expect. It's because I'm putting Secret Garden back onto its card. Okay, so here is the called for green. So this is Joshua Tree, and again, so it's being blown out from the lights. In my world, this is a very grayish green. The skein that I have is fairly grayy. I would say it's more grayy than greeny, which, you know, we're getting into all sorts of nuances, which now the funny thing is, because originally I looked at it and I went, I don't know if I want to use that with those pinks. And the default answer is, well, when in doubt, revert to the DMC called for, right? Just go with the conversion. And I looked at the conversion and went, I think that's a little too far for me. So the called for DMC on this chart is DMC 471, where you're like, to me, these do not look similar at all. And this is where it gets really interesting. And it's not to say that Wendy didn't do a good job when she was doing her DMC conversion, right? This is a hand-dyed fiber. The version she had may have really have converted to 471. Clearly the version of Joshua Tree that I have, like, this is not close. I also said to myself that this, not that those two pinks and this green don't go together. I think they do go together. But for me, this is too bright a green to be February. Now, that's probably because of where I live. I live in North America. I'm north of the equator. We are in the middle of winter. I live north of the 49th parallel, so I'm definitely in winter territory. So February to me does not scream bright greens. This is not a February color for me. So I looked at the DMC and went, technically it goes, but this is not February for me. So I threw that one out the window. I'm just looking at some escaping floss. So then, which is why I had to go do something else. Now, I'm going to put all of these on here. So yes, so even on camera, while this is not exactly true to color, you can, from my perspective, putting the Secret Garden up beside the Joshua tree, this, see, to me it's fairly grayish, which is why that didn't work for me. Which is why I ended up going with Secret Garden, right? So it is greeny, but not too bright greeny. I know, all sorts of, you know, did I really need to spend this much time thinking about the greens? Probably not, but that's me. And I'm happy with the outcome, which is even better. Sorry, so now I have to put them back into their floss away bags so nothing horrible goes wrong. Sorry, props. Okay, there we go. All of that, and all of that can go into the to be organized pile. Okay, so yes, there we go. There is my February Quaker finished. And just for fun on the back of this, because we're 2 months in, which means this is easy to do, just as a reminder, there is my January. I am doing all of these on a 40 count White Verdal. I'm not even trying to get, it's all going to be done on white, full stop. And I'm okay with that because I don't like browns. So most people go, you know, go with the platinum or, you know, any of those samplery brown type colors, and it would be lovely. That's you. I'm doing it on white and I'm happy with that. So there is my February. I will say I did make one change to the pattern. I just had to look at it again and go, what was it? Okay, so this specific leaf here, this last of the 4 of the interior motif, was not a duplicate, a reverse duplicate of the top one. This has 5, I want to say 5, is it 5? Yes, 5. So 5 stitches tall. This one was only 4. Now, because I was stitching all of this in one sitting, that's why I sort of came down to the bottom and went, and what, 4? What do you mean 4? Why is it 4? How did we end up with 4? And so, according to the pattern, this is only 4. I made it 5 because you know I have a thing about things being symmetrical. I was thinking balanced. That's not it. Symmetrical. So I fixed it. And so I just came down the 4, took 1 more down. Now, it doesn't impact anything. It doesn't run into anything. The same amount of empty stitches between the top of this is the same as up here, which all I did is I made it symmetrical. If you have this chart in your stash and symmetry is a thing for you, just something to note. I adjusted this one leaf down there. If you are new to me and you're wondering, I made 2 changes on January. I pushed the word January down by 2 stitches just to make it more centered, and I added 2 extra leaves down here into the bottom, and they are really just duplicates of these other ones. They just came down to the center. So far, I love my changes. Isn't it lovely? Isn't it lovely? I love this whole series. I loved the January when it came out, and I told myself I was going to be well behaved because, you know, there were 11 more months to go, and I think by absolutely by May for sure I was like going, forget it. I'm gonna have to do the whole series, even though I don't like surprises, and even though I hadn't seen all the rest of them, I knew I was going to have to do it. So that was my second finish for this week. And then, of course, yesterday was the 11th, and the 11th is the day that I have set aside to work on my Remember 911 by Just Nan. Yes, so there's Just Nan. This is an out-of-print chart. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is the piece that she designed after 9/11 occurred. And I'm finally getting around to it. Yes. If you're new here and you don't know this, I'm just going to briefly say, I very vividly remember 9/11. Don't forget, like as many people do, it's a very vivid memory for me because my brother was working in the World Trade Center at that time. So there was a lot of waiting until we found out that he was okay. Yeah, anyway, he's fine. It was all fine for my family, but it certainly was a notable day because we were certainly one of those families that were, you know, waiting from a long distance away because we had no idea where a family member was. So anyway, that's why I'm choosing to stitch this. Yes, it's many years after the fact, but I still very vividly remember that day. So where did I get to on this one? So the nice thing is it was Saturday when I was working on this, so I had oodles of time to stitch on it, which is great because it took me oodles of time to get the things done. So I finished this band here, and this band, these 4 roses, I think they call them roses. Hang on a minute. Yes, the 4 rose motifs are to represent the 4 planes. No, yes, 4 planes. Yes, 4 planes. Like 4 planes, 3 buildings. I had to check that in my head. Yes, so I got all of that band stitched. The funny thing is that, believe it or not, in each of these roses, there are 5 colors to stitch that. They're very close. And then I did the band below it, and so 2 bands below it. This is the Hungarian diamond stitch. Okay, we all know I'm terrible at stitch names. I just follow the diagrams. The Hungarian diamond stitch, and then of course the plate stitch below it, using the variegated floss, which is Old Glory, which I don't know if it's still available or not. If you remember from when I worked on this in January, I had put out a question to the Flosstube verse asking for opinions on what to do with my variegated floss. And I've decided what I'm doing. My length of floss, so it takes the length of the Old Glory silk that came with the chart. You're stitching the plate stitch with 1 strand, and one strand of the length that I have will do one of these bands. Now, the other thing is there's not a ton of red in mine compared to sort of, well, I'm looking at going, anyway, I feel like there's more red in the length that was used for the model. So I just have these two sections. One is a longer section, which is sort of equivalent to the blues, and then this next one is a very, very short length of red. So I have decided that I am just going to alternate starting at the various ends, right? So this is starting at one end, this is starting at the other end to make it do that. And I'm just going to alternate between starting in a blue, the cream with the small red, the blue, etc., for the five bands of this that is in this design. I don't think fussy cutting it to have it start with a red necessarily gets me anything, and then I have to fussy cut it, and I didn't want to do that. Like one length nicely fits across here, and so I've just decided I'm going to alternate, and it means, you know, I will get the red in every time as in the blue. I think it will be fine. So that's what I've decided to do for the variegated floss for this particular piece. So making progress on that. I have not marked off in Markup RXP that I've done this to get the stitch count on this. I will say this plate stitch takes forever. Anyway, it's a really easy stitch, but for some reason it takes me forever. I go very slowly when I do it. Makes no sense. Hungarian diamond band with 2 colors went way faster than I did the plate stitch, but anyway. So yeah, making good progress on this. It will be very interesting to see where I'm at when I get, when I finish stitching on this in August, because it'll be interesting to see if I need to push for a finish in September or whether or not it's going to continue on for a couple more months. We'll see. I've been sort of looking ahead and going, wonder how much I'll get stitched on the 11th, because I only stitched this on the 11th of the month, so we'll see. Like I say, it was great that I had a Saturday to work on this and get all of that done. I did use some of my Saturday stitching time to finish off the Quaker, but there was, I think I had about 250 stitches left to go. So I was like, it's a Saturday, I don't have to get anything done today, so I had ample time to get the Quaker finished and get a decent chunk of Remember 911 done. So that's my stitching for this week. I feel like it was a very productive week. I had a whole plan where I was going to work on one other thing, because I kind of went, so I did the Quaker in the morning, and then, okay, I actually did a few, you know, home things. And then I was like, okay, so in the afternoon I will start working on Remember 911, and I kind of had a goal of, you know, that I wanted to get down to that plate stitch. But then I got distracted by a few things, watched a couple of things on YouTube. Yeah, watched a few floss tubes, got totally distracted. Anyway, then I made supper, then I came back and finished it off, and then I went, okay, you don't have time left, because it's going to be an afternoon project, then an evening project, and that didn't quite work out. But that's life. It's stitching. I'm not doing life and death research on cancer treatments, so, you know, it worked out okay. All right, with that, let's get into Stashquisitions. So these are the things that I picked up when I was doing my my outing last weekend. I am fortunate enough that I actually have multiple cross-stitch shops around me that I can shop from, and they all do different things, which is why you end up shopping. You know, you have 3 shops, you end up shopping at 3 shops because they all do different things. It just happens to be that Traditional Stitches and the Stitching Corner out in Cochrane, that's sort of like one trip. The other trip is heading more south for me. So I did the Traditional Stitches and the Stitching Corner in one trip, and last week we saw what I got from the Stitching Corner. So this week is what I got at Traditional Stitches, and I'm going to start. I got 5 cards of Rainbow Gallery Petite Treasure Braid PBO5. This is a black. So here's the funny story about this. I went in, they had a little package for me. I did go into the store because I was looking for things as well, but they'd gathered what they had ready for me from some previous orders that I had placed for stuff that was out of stock. And I looked at it and I went, I remember ordering it, and it's for a specific project, right? Because it very specifically, I needed 5 cards of this color. And for the life of me, I couldn't remember what it was. I mean, I got it, I'd ordered it. I knew I had ordered it. I knew I needed it for a project. Could not remember at all what I needed it for. Fortunately, the following day I remembered it's for Bellatrix by Bella Filipina. I'm working on getting those. Okay, so what else did I get while I was there? Okay, so I got Needleart's Cherry Bark. I got a 10-yard skein of this. This is one of the colors that I need for that Blackbird design that I showed you, Raise a Glass of Cheer. So that's going to be used for that. In case you didn't know, Needleart does also sell their fibers in 10-yard skeins as well as the 5-yard skeins. The stores that I have seen that sell them, it's actually cheaper to buy it as a 10-yard skein than it is to buy 2 5-yard skeins. It's not because the stores are doing anything weird. Needleart actually does price them differently, which is why the 10-yard skein is a better deal. So I'm now in the camp that I'm trying to, if I need to get a Needleart color, I'm trying to get it as a 10-yard skein. Not every store buys the 10-yard skeins. So just so you know, some offer it, some don't. Like I say, I've got one store here that doesn't offer the 10-yard skeins and one store that does. So to the extent I can get the 10-yard skein, I'm getting the 10-yard skein. But you'll laugh because the next two, you know, totally contradict that. I was needing some green as I was kitting up a couple of things, and so I got some Needleart Evergreen and Needleart Shutter Green. These are both 5-yard skeins. Why? Because they didn't have them in the 10-yard skeins, so I needed them to kit something up, so I got them without ordering. You know, I could place the order and wait for them to get a 10-yard skein. I don't think I need a 10-yard skein for my project, so it was fine. Oh, and Ruby Slipper. Another red. I also need to go out. I think Classic Colorworks also has a Ruby Slipper. I've decided I need to add that to my collection as well. So next time I go to a store, I'm getting one of those. Oh, I can't do this very well. And Needleart's Hyacinth. This is very specifically for one of my library stitching projects. I was missing that for that one. I got a skein of Dark Chocolate by Dinky Dyes. I got a skein of Weeks Dye Works Mocha. I got this one because I was kitting something up and I pulled the one skein of Weeks Dye Works Mocha that I had in my stash, and I'm trying to do a new roll. So when I use up the last of that, the last of a color that I have in my existing stash, I'm gonna try and replace it. Certainly this one, because this is a brown color that I can handle. We know I'm very sensitive around my browns. So I knew that I'd thrown my last skein of this into a project, so I picked up another one just to put that back into stash. And then I got another skein of the Cottage Garden Threads Murray Pine. This is for Palace of the Winds. I was reading through my chart on this, and they said even on 40 count, they recommended that you have 3 skeins of this. I only had 2 when I originally bought the Cottage Garden Threads, so I picked up another one because they had it in stock. And then I also picked up a piece of fabric I wasn't necessarily sure I was going to get this, but I looked for it while I was at the shop. They had it in stock, so I got it. This is 28 count Touch of Gray linen by Witchelt. Yes. So it's, you know, it's me. It's a very bluey gray. So it's showing up a darker on camera than it is in real life. It's a little lighter than that. So a pale bluey gray. This is for a specific project that is tentatively scheduled for 2026. And I'm only saying tentatively because, you know, 2026 is a number of years away, which means I still have the option to change my projects for 2026 between now and then. But the project that this is for is one that I do want to stitch. So they had the fabric. I liked the fabric. It was the right color. And I went, all right, fine. 4 years from now, I am 100% sure that the cost for this piece of fabric is going to be more expensive than it is now. So I decided I was just going to buy the fabric now. Thoughts on why I buy things now for projects 4 years out? Sometimes just because. So those are my Stashquisitions for this week. And then I have a couple of announcements. I use that word lightly. Just a reminder for anybody, if you are in the greater Calgary area, the next stitching at the library is this coming Saturday, February the 18th from 9:30 to 12:30 at the Signal Hill Library in Calgary. The details for that are in the notes below. If you're new to the group, you don't need to let me know you're coming in advance. You can come at whatever time suits you. You don't have to commit to coming for the full 3 hours. If you're in the greater Calgary area and you want to stitch with, you know, people live and in person, it's a great group. The number of people we have is always random. It's life, right? It's also the family day long weekend here in Alberta. So whether or not that works for some people, anybody's guess. But certainly there will be several of us there. There always has been. So if you're wanting to stitch with people, come join us at the library. And then when I was at the Stitching Corner in Cochrane, I noted they have a few people that when they're sort of destashing, they just sort of donate it to the Stitching Corner, and they have this sort of bin section at the front of the store, which I call the charity chart bin, which is really charts that have been donated back to the store as somebody is destashing. And then all of the charts in that bin are $2 a chart. And I think all of the proceeds are being donated to charity, which is why I call it the charity chart bin. They're $2. My thing is they're $2 a chart anyway. In there, I noted when I was there 2 weeks ago, well, technically a week ago, yesterday, they had a full set of the Marbeck Nativity charts. So if anybody was looking to get their hands on a set of very reasonably priced charts, they had all 6 of them. I will put the contact information for the Stitching Corner. They're closed on Mondays for sure. They might be closed on Tuesdays. I don't remember. But you can reach them by email. You can also reach them by phone. I will put their contact number. I know that not everybody out there is wanting to stitch the Marbeck Nativity. Totally understand that. But if you are someone who is interested in getting those charts at a very economical price, $2 Canadian per chart for the, and they had all 6 charts in that charity bin section. So just in case anybody was interested in getting those charts. All right, which brings us to the topic, not surprisingly, because this is a topic that comes up for me every year. Let's talk Nashville Needlework Market. So if you are new to stitching, the Nashville Needlework Market is a it's a market for wholesalers. So all of your brick and mortar shops and online retail needleworkers can go to this market. I, as a retail customer, do not have access to this market. It's for the shops to go and see. It's sort of one of the two, I call them the two big markets that are sort of now going on. There's the August Expo and the Nashville Needlework. So it's generally a time where a lot of the designers are sort of prepping up and they're doing a big release for Nashville Needlework Market. It's an in-person market, so the shop owners go and they get to have a chance to talk to the designers and see the models in real life. And we all know the models are the things that, you know, something that you looked online is like, well, maybe, and then you see the model and you go, okay, like that's... Anyway, so yes, they get to see the models live and in person, which is always great. And we have reached that point in time where a lot of the designers are showing what they're doing. I have been stitching long enough that I remember in olden times when Nashville was going on, before social media was a thing. The shops, you know, we had shops here that would go down, and I remember one store in particular, we would go and we would line up outside the shop, like probably at least 20 minutes, if not half an hour. We would start lining up outside the shop for, you know, so they would go down, they would do the Nashville Needlework Market, they would come back, and then the following weekend they would set up and we could go and we could see all of the Nashville stuff. I remember going on Saturdays and lining up to get into a brick and mortar shop to see what happened, see what was released at Nashville. So you didn't have all of this online presence. You didn't get to see the sneak peeks. You didn't get no sneak peeks, no previews, no nothing. Everything that occurred at market was a complete and utter mystery until your shop came back from market and showed you what they got. And, you know, even then, not your shop couldn't pick up everything, right? So anyway, I love the fact that we get to see in advance generally what the Nashville market releases are. I know it takes away sort of some of the hype. You know, like I remember going like, oh my goodness, I have no idea what I'm going to find, and walking in and walking out with things that you were like, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. I like the fact that I at least get to see them in advance and see what's going on at Nashville, what's coming out at Nashville, and what it's going to look like. So if you are looking for the Nashville, I monitor multiple online shops that have Nashville pages, or whether it's a dedicated page where they have all the Nashville stuff, or they specifically put in the descriptions Nashville 2023, so you can search for that term to get them all. Check your sites. But there are three distinct online shops that I'm looking at, because the interesting thing is they don't all have all the same stuff. Interestingly enough, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of crossover, but not everybody is showing all of the things, which is why I'm monitoring multiple shops. It's because I'm getting to look at them and going like, ooh, look at this, ooh, look at that. So it's been very interesting seeing what's coming out. I am hoping is the wrong word. My goal is actually not to place a Nashville order. I know, sounds totally weird for me. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I have a lot of stash. I did some math in January after I had done my statistics for 2022, which, don't get me wrong, was my best stitching year ever in my entire stitching life. 2022 was my best stitching year. And I did some math on that and went, if I continue at that pace, there is a remote chance that I could stitch everything that I currently have in my stash. It's remote. It's technically slightly doable, but it really would mean that I would, if I couldn't buy another chart for the rest of my life to make it into that slight chance of it actually being doable. That's not realistic, but anyway. So I'm trying to remind myself that I do have a large stash, and there are charts in there. You know, look at Patricia Ann Designs. I've had that chart in my stash, what, for 20 years? It finally got stitched. I'm glad I had it. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad I had it in my stash, but I'm even more glad that I actually stitched it. So I am going through all of the Nashville releases and looking at them and trying to do my same old. I always laugh because I love when things that I say to myself work better for you people than it does for me. So I'm trying to apply my own mottos to my own life. Is, do I like this more than something I already have in my stash? And it's been interesting. There have been several things that I've looked at them and went, ooh, and it's like, no, wait, hang on a minute. Do you like this more? And then if I could come up with like, you know, several projects in my stash that I like more than that one, I got to say, okay, not yet. I don't need to get it yet. Now, there's a couple of caveats. I know that not all of the designers that are going have released their stuff. Something that may push me over the edge is if I come across a Nashville limited edition something or other, right? So there are designers where they come out with things where they go, you know, they can only make X amount of something or other for whatever reason. And so, you know, it's a Nashville limited edition release. That's something that if I saw it and I went, oh my goodness, I love that, I would absolutely go, forget whether I have 10 things that I would stitch before it. I'm going to go, if there's a chance that I can only get it because it's limited edition, I would go and I would order that. I'm reminding myself that, you know, the charts that are released at Nashville are not necessarily, for the most part, are not necessarily exclusive to Nashville. I think a lot of the designers out there actually do wait a period of time before they send those designs to the distributors for, you know, for shops that aren't able to attend market. And, you know, there are a lot of shops out there who can't attend market for a variety of reasons. So I do appreciate the fact that they allow the shops that invest the time and the money to come to Nashville and participate in that, to bring the wares back and sell them to their customers. I appreciate that. I also appreciate that after a period of time, those shops that can't make that work for whatever reason still have access to those charts. So anyway, so I'm reminding myself that there are charts that are coming out that I'm looking at, and currently I have 4 charts on my list. 3 of them are what I call real Nashville releases. One of them is showing up frequently as a Nashville release, but it was actually, I know that I could have bought it from the designer's website as a PDF last year, maybe early this year. So it's sort of a Nashville release. Maybe it's a Nashville release in the paper form, but I know that I could have bought it as a PDF. So I've got 4 on my list at the moment. What I am trying to do is that I am going to use those particular charts as rewards. So that I'm going to set myself some specific goals, and once I reach those goals, the reward will be that I will then be in a position where I can buy the chart. We'll see how it goes. 2 of them for sure I'm not terribly worried about. I know they're not limited edition. I know I'll be able to get, actually that's not true. Yeah, actually all of them. I'm going to say right now, all of them, they're not limited edition. I know that I will be able to get them. Even if I don't reach my goals this year at all, I am 100% confident that I will be able to get them next year. Those charts aren't going away. And again, so that's where I'm tempering down my, you know, the hype around things. And, you know, I was watching someone where they were trying to stay off of social media things because they found that when they stayed off of the social media sites, that their fear of missing out dropped significantly, which, I've said this before, sometimes I really enjoy watching Flosstube with people who I think I really like them as people, and I enjoy watching the Flosstube, and I'm very, very grateful that they work on projects that don't appeal to me at all. I haven't made it all the way through Handwork Maniac's Whip Parade because I was really, really worried about hers. She tends to work on a lot of projects that I really, really like, and I was really worried about how problematic her Whip Parade could be. So far, I'm doing okay. So far, I'm doing okay. I haven't come up with an egregious list of things, but I'm working through her slowly, but I should finish her off this week. And anyway, so that's one of my things, right? I watch Flosstube with people who work on things that don't necessarily appeal to me. I'm also secretly behind the scenes, even though there have been a lot of releases. We all know I've been hoping that there would have been a lot of gnomes, which I don't feel like this is turning out to be a very gnomey year. You know, gnomes, a lot of farm animals, chicks, ducks, geese, hens, farm anything. A lot of Americana. That would work out really well for me because it's not that I have an issue with Americana, it's just that I'm Canadiana. So the more Americana charts that come out, those don't necessarily make it into my stash because I'm not an American. Anyway, so far it's been relatively, I've been doing okay. There was one thing that I kind of looked at and I went, I think I've talked myself out of it. So we'll see how that goes. So my secret goal, which I don't know how secret it's going to be when I publish a Flosstube, which goes public. My secret goal is I'm hoping to not place a Nashville order. Set some goals. Treat the charts as rewards is why it's not in Nashville. Doesn't mean those charts that are being released at Nashville you won't necessarily see in a future Stashquisition, but my secret goal is hopefully I'm not putting in a Nashville order. The other thing about Nashville, and it's interesting, I've watched a couple of things, and you know, I'm on the newsletter for a wide variety of shops, both here in Canada as well as in the US. So it's been interesting. I will say, if you place an order with a shop, please only place your order for that item with one shop. It's been interesting. It's been coming up in several places, which is interesting to me, where it seems to me like last year that there were a lot of shops that had real issues with people placing an order for Nashville and canceling it. The shops that you place your order with are not, for the most part, are small businesses. They're local shops. They are not Amazon. They're not Walmart. When you place an order with them, they are counting on you to honor that because they have gone to Nashville. You've said you wanted whatever it is that you've put on your order, and they have gone to Nashville and bought it for you because you placed that order. If they bring it back and then you go, well, I placed my order for this item with 3 shops and shop XYZ got it to me the fastest, and now I'm canceling my order with your shop, that is really unfair to the shop owners. Place an order, stick with it. I know that some shops, and they've been very transparent about it, have previously said, you know, they allowed people to place orders for Nashville, and they didn't have to pay for it up front. But because of the number of cancellations that occurred last year, they are now in a position where they are requiring you to pay for your Nashville order up front, which is really, really sad. You know, I know, certainly the ones that I go, I know that they, you know, they regret that they are in a position that they have to do it, but given what transpired the previous year and the you know, they spent the money, they brought all the inventory back, and clearly it was a big enough problem for several shops that they are now saying that they are having, they're needing people to prepay for their orders because it's effectively forcing you to honor your order. So if you place your order with a shop that isn't making you prepay, please place your order only with one shop, and please honor your order. No shop has asked me to make that, but it's come up in several spots, and I know that I have a couple where I get newsletters where they've had to implement new policies because of what happened last year. So that's really unfortunate. Anyway, I'm also waiting to see, you know, there are several, whether they have their own shops that have their own floss tubes, or whether it's, you know, for example, Stephanie from Just Keep Stitching, she sort of talks about what's happening at Keepsakes, about how Nashville went for them. I always love seeing when they come back and say, what are like the top 10 popular things that came out at Nashville. It's always fascinating to see what they are, because different shops, right, different customer bases, different 27 things, they're not the same list. It's always interesting to see what the differences are. So if you've got Nashville favorites, throw them down into the comment section down below. I would love to see if there's something that's particularly got you drooling, going like, oh my goodness, wait a minute, did you not see this Nashville release? How is this not a must? Anyway, would love to see that in the comment section down below. And with that, that's Nashville's coming. Nashville's coming. I know I'm ridiculous. My goal is not to shop. I'm checking several sites probably once a day. I'm glad we're through the sneak peek season, and I didn't really see too many sneak peeks. We're in the full-on reveals, which I appreciate that. I don't like the sneak peeks. Just show me what you're coming out with. Anyway, with that, that's what I've got for you this week. As always, thinking of the people of the Ukraine. Also thinking of the people of in Turkey and Syria from the terrible earthquakes. Thinking of the people in New Zealand with their floods. We're having some, yeah, there's a lot, as always, there are a lot of places in our world where the people are really struggling and experiencing terrible times. So thoughts and prayers out for all of those people, for all of the things that they're going through. It always, I was talking to someone even today where it said, like, I'm grateful that I'm safe and that I'm not experiencing those things. And, you know, like many people are struggling, going, how do we really make sure that we're assisting as much as we can? Because there are terrible things to go through. So thinking of a lot of places and a lot of people, as always. And you know my watchwords: safety first, safety first, safety first. I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're staying healthy, and I hope that you're finding some time to do some stitching. And I look forward to seeing you next week via Flosstube. But if you're in the greater Calgary area and have the opportunity, if you want to come and stitch in person, we're meeting at the library this next Saturday, February the 18th. Take care.